if it works for you, it works for you, right?
Yeah,
Even on
yeah.
social media, like when you hear someone who has a EV car, you form certain assumptions about that person.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I don't think you know how many times I've seen the Cybertruck and I'm like, damn, that's an ugly car. But you know what?
you're now listening to Gradually Speaking. Today's guest is a powerhouse, balancing engineering at Hydro One, a full-time degree, university leadership, all at once. He's driven by a mission to optimize energy for a better future. Please welcome my good friend and a true change maker, Mr. Tariq Salim, ladies and gentlemen.
Much. Thank you. Thank you. How you
So,
doing?
good. I'm doing good. So, hey man, I am thrilled about this conversation. So,
Sure.
let's just start at the beginning. How did
Mhm.
you get into engineering and why electrical specifically?
So I guess I'll kind of bring it back 5, 6 years. So in grade 12, when I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, it kind of again it started with the courses that I chose to take in grade 12. So I decided to stick with chemistry, physics, math, more specifically functions, advanced functions, um, and and taking those courses, not really knowing what those courses would kind of lead me to. I just kind of took those courses for the sake of taking the courses. Kind of skipped on bio because I didn't like it.
Mhm.
Um, so I stuck with those, and I kind of just looked at what opportunities I could get and what programs I could get into through those courses that I was taking, and two really popped to me. First one was engineering, just
Mhm.
in general, of course, first year, and the second one was actually like becoming a pilot, so going through flight school, and going through that, and eventually just working full time, becoming a pilot. Maybe I was even considering going into the art, like the Air Force,
Oh.
something. Yeah, I even considered it, but again, that didn't end up happening. So uh, now I was balancing the two decisions, and the reason why I decided engineering, and this is a funny story actually. My dad found this thing online where Waterloo, University of Waterloo, actually anybody can go and pay $100 for an hour in the air in like a small Cessna 152, like those little planes, with an instructor. So you can fly up with an instructor for an hour, only for $100. So it's super cheap. Again, that was 5, 6 years ago. I don't know. Inflation probably brought it up a bit. So
Mhm.
I went up, flew a bit. View was amazing. Came down, and I kind of gave my parents the thumbs up,
Mhm.
and they're like, ah, finally, first pilot in the family. And I went to speak to them, and they're like, hey, how was it? Like, yes, we're so excited. And I was like, yes, I'm also so excited to be on the ground.
Mhm.
I did not
Mhm.
like it. So
Uh,
so they were like, like, what can we do
mhm.
now? So
Mhm.
I kind of just ended up sticking with engineering. Now,
Mhm.
more specifically, why electrical was I was thinking to the future. I always try to be a bit of a future thinker, and where I would be 10, 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Uh, so when I was kind of considering, I was like, you know what? Okay, let me go create a list and then start checking off one by one as to what I don't want. I said civil, not really into civil, doesn't seem like something I'm interested in. Space, again, just because I like astronomy doesn't mean I'd like space eng.
Mhm.
Um, so I was like, I'll check that off. Uh, Mech, I did like parts of mech, but not all of it. Like it was one of the options I was considering, but it didn't fully stand out to me. And then I absolutely checked off computer eng and software eng just because I did not like coding. I did not like software. Um, Now, I will say electrical does have like some. software aspect to it, which I understand, and
Mm-hmm.
computer aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that I was passionate about and that kind of stood out to me was power. And electrical was the only discipline that I can get into that would actually help me pursue that. And so I was like, between electrical and mech, let me choose electrical. Because, if you look to the future, um, a lot of things are moving towards electricity. A lot of things are moving, to renewable energy. And so we work with that. And the job market would be amazing a couple years down the road. So I said, why not? Why not just give myself that opportunity, go into something I actually kind of enjoy doing, and you know, see the job market 5, 10 years down the road, and it'll be good. So that's why I chose engineering and electrical specifically.
Right. Right. So I believe you took these courses while you were graduating high school or when you were in high school. And I know it's a very young age to be making these kind of decisions. So how did you kind of think through that? And what are the factors that kind of helped you understand that yes, engineering is for me? And just to add to that, I know you tried the pilot thing with University of Waterloo, but it didn't work out. And you were confident enough in yourself to kind of know that this thing was not for you. So, were
Mhm.
you always like this?
Not necessarily. I used to not be the very confident type kind of guy. I always again, it's something I still do every once in a while. Again, not often, and I'm better at it now, but I always used to second guess myself, question myself. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing what's going to be best for me? And I used to really think about that a lot. Now with the courses that I took those courses because again, being grade 11, grade 12, you don't really know what you want to do. Because I went into grade 12 not really knowing what I wanted to do. Again, like post secondary wise. And so my dad advised me, he's like, take this, take this, take this. This will help you out, kind of give you good job options. And I said, okay. So I took that. Now, I it was kind of like cornering myself in a way because just because I took those courses, uh, I would say a limited number of programs, post-secondary programs that I actually wanted to get into or that seemed interesting. And engineering and flight school were the two that really kind of like piqued my interest. Now, don't get me wrong, like I'm a pandemic baby. I graduated in grade 12 from grade 12 in 2020. So also what kind of helped me get into university in the first place was my grades
Mm-hmm.
because the ruling was at the time when the pandemic hit, your grades could not get any lower than they already were. And that really helped me out. So I boosted my grades from then and actually
Mm-hmm.
managed to graduate with honors and uh, and get acceptance and admittance into engineering here. So I'm thankful for the pandemic, although not a lot of people would be. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the things that I'm thankful for, and it just kind of helped me get to where I am right now. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you seem very humble, like you are allocating your success to all these external factors. But I know for a fact that you are a really hard worker and you have built on that, right? It didn't come
yeah,
overnight, right? You started out as this not so confident guy, and today you're the person you are today because of the steps you have taken. And
yeah.
how did you build on that? For like young people who are aspiring to be something, what would you advise them to do to build that confidence?
it's a little tough because everybody's different and they find confidence in a lot of different things. I think for me, me personally, I wasn't always academically inclined. I'll be honest with you. I in high school I never really cared about school. I just
Mm-hmm.
did it because I had to. I didn't do
Mm-hmm.
it because I wanted to. And that's where the deciding factor for me was. I think I kind of something like a switch kind of flipped in me in grade 11ish,
Mm-hmm.
grade 12, and I said like, look, I get all this advice from my parents. Now this is what my dad tells me, and
Mm-hmm.
he says this. He's like, look, suffer now and enjoy later, or enjoy now and suffer later. You can spend 4 years, maybe at the time he told me I was grade 11, grade 12. He was like, spend 4 to 5 years of suffering and spend the next 50 years of your life enjoying it, or spend the next 4 to 5 years of enjoyment and then the other 50 years of your life suffering. And when you're a kid, you hear advice, it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. You're like, it's fine, like I don't gotta worry. But and you're like, yeah, I have time. Well, yeah, you have time, but time runs out eventually.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. There's no such thing as infinite time. Like it, everybody's on a clock. So you work to your clock, of course, but you want to get someplace. You want to be somebody. You want to, you know, work towards that. And that's what kind of helped flip that switch in me. So I realized like I needed to get things done to want to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the rest of my life and actually be and live happy and live, not necessarily make millions, but live well enough that I don't have to worry about much. And so
Wow.
that's what kind of helped me. And it's just being future thinking about the future. That's the advice I would give. Just think about you 5 to 10, 15 years from now and where you want to be, and then come up with steps on how you get there. And the first step is just understanding what you need to do to get to that point.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely something to reflect on and think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so once you got into university, like you had all these opportunities that were in front of you.
Yeah.
My question to
Yeah.
you is, how did you end up in those opportunities? What steps did you take?
Hmm.
And how important
Yeah.
was building connections with people in order to pursue those opportunities?
I'm not gonna lie to you.
Mm-hmm.
Connections are extremely important in getting those opportunities. It's the
Mm-hmm.
exact reason why I got those opportunities to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had, I knew somebody who
Mm-hmm.
worked for a company,
Mm-hmm.
and they did this like, excuse me, this student summer program where they would help out with a lot of work in the manufacturing company. If you don't know what the company is called, it's called Crystal Fountains. They're
Mm-hmm.
just a manufacturing company that work on building water features globally. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew somebody, or I knew a few people at least that worked at the company, and they needed some summer help, and they thought I would be, someone who was willing to help. So they asked me, and they offered me, hey, do you want to do this? I said, yes, absolutely. And the reason why I took it was because that experience early on, before anybody else would get experience, would put me steps ahead of everybody else, right? And
Absolutely.
and and it was honestly the best decision I made because it led up. So I started at the end of my first year. So now
Mm-hmm.
this wasn't an official co-op through the school, but this uh, it was an opportunity anyway. So I took it. I worked there for 4 months for the summer after first year. I
Mm-hmm.
learned a lot about just the manufacturing process. You know, clients, working with clients, emailing, professional communication, and such.
Right.
All the soft skills that you build kind of get into the workforce. Uh, and it helped me a lot kind of grow as a, someone professionally, like in the professional standpoint. And they called me back again the next year. So at the end of second year, I went back and I did the
Mm-hmm.
same thing again. And I already knew the process from the beginning, so it just kind of helped with the transition of getting back into work. And I it was just smooth sailing onwards, and it was amazing. And so it really kind of helped me become more confident in myself and my abilities, and allowed me to just kind of put myself out there, because I knew if I didn't, then I'd be missing out on a lot of opportunities. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what happened end of third year. So my end of third year, which would have been around 2023, like June 2023,
Mm-hmm.
uh, was when I started my actual full-time 16-month co-op with Hydro One. And
Yeah.
the rest is history. 16 months down the drain, and I finished last August. And it's just,
Right.
that's it, man. It
Yeah.
went by like that. And it's just the best experience of my life. Can't,
Yeah.
so
So
happy that it happened. So grateful.
it feels like a domino effect, right? Like you
It's
started,
Yeah, it's a huge domino effect. I tell you,
yeah.
once you kind of tip the first one,
Mm-hmm.
all of them will fall. Every single one. But you have to do it early on, even if it's like a nepotism co-op.
Mm-hmm.
Do it. Anything. Just to give yourself the edge ahead of everybody else. Because at the end of the day, yes, you have friends, but those friends are also your competition in the workforce, especially if
Mm-hmm.
you're in the same program. So those
Mm-hmm.
are things you have to really think about and consider for yourself. As much as you don't want to be selfish, you kind of
Mm-hmm.
have to be if you want to get what you want.
Mm.
That's just
Right.
the way to think about it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I want to know more about kind of your Crystal Fountains experience.
Yeah.
So you got this opportunity by making connections,
Yeah.
and I believe that was within the university.
No, this was outside the
No,
university.
outside the university, right? So
Yeah.
you got the job, and I did my research on Crystal Fountains. They manufacture water fountains, and like they
Yeah.
put LED lights in it, and like they have worked with a lot of popular public places, if I'm not wrong.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
correct.
I wanted to know what was your main role there. So you explained the soft skills aspect of it, like emailing people
Mhm.
and like professional correspondence. But what did
Yeah.
it look like for you as a
Mhm.
electrical engineer?
So my role was basically, so the actual name of the role was called a customer service technician.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, my role was just to kind of aid and help out the engineers.
Mm-hmm.
I would help them. I guess if I were to look at a day-to-day basis,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'd kind of go through, they'd kind of like forward me some emails that came in from clients, maybe asking for cut sheets or any technical information. I'd go and I'd find that technical information, kind of send it either to the client directly or send it back to the engineers to send to the client.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd help, prep with some of the manufacturing actually before it's actually sent out, and
Mm-hmm.
you know the commissioning takes place. So that was just kind of my role. So I'd kind of help out where I'm needed. Uh, Again, I can't really go too much into the specifics because there's just certain things I can't really talk about
I
within
understand.
the like about the work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's just about it. Like my main role was just to kind of help out where I'm needed, especially with the engineers. If I needed to sit back at lunchtime when the person sitting at the front desk is on lunch, and take the
Mm-hmm.
calls and work myself, like I had to do that, but like I just did what I could, and when I was needed to do those things, and
Mm-hmm.
that was really my role there.
I see. So
Yeah.
af- after I believe it was a 3 month internship, 4 month, just for the
So it
summer.
was it was 4 months. well, 4 months for the first year that I was there, and then
Mm-hmm.
I think 2 to 3 months for the second year I was there.
Understood.
Yeah.
So, what was your takeaway from those that experience, and how did you relate that to your teachings in your
Mhm.
courses?
I think okay, so there wasn't. I'll be honest, there wasn't much of a correlation with the courses that I took.
Mm-hmm.
It was more so the professional aspect. So
Mm-hmm.
the only course that I could have possibly related it to was is Eng 3000,
Mm-hmm.
which is well, I can't remember what the name of the course was. Was it professional engineering communication?
Oh,
Can't remember. I can't remember the name of the course. It's been a couple years since I
right.
took it. But it's just it kind of helped me build confidence in myself technically,
Mm-hmm.
and through interpersonal skills because it kind of helped me get over me second guessing myself and really being like, oh, is this right? Is this right?
Mm-hmm.
Or did I do something wrong here? Oh, did I do this? Did I do that? Like, it helped me kind of get over that and become more confident in the decisions I made. Even when I was wrong, I still
Mm-hmm.
was wrong. Don't get me wrong. Doesn't mean I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
But at least, you know, I wasn't second guessing myself or questioning myself. And when I was wrong and I was told I was wrong, I'd be like, this is my bad. Let me go fix it. I'll do it, get it right, so on and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. At least it helped me kind of like build myself up and kind of get over those shortcomings quicker than I would have used to. So that's kind of how it really helped me.
Right. Absolutely. And so, since you mentioned you did the same internship twice, technically, how was it going back the second time? Did you feel like it was worth it? And
Oh,
how different
absolutely.
was it?
I don't think it was much different. My day to day still looked the same, but the only thing that kind of differed was how open and outgoing I would have been with everybody there. Because I think I only just like I started to kind of get to know everybody towards the
Mm-hmm.
end of the first term of my
Mm-hmm.
co-op. And then when I came back the second time, it just kind of helped so much. It was just so much easier because everybody already knew me and I already knew everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just me kind of remembering the process because I had already done it before, and then
Mm-hmm.
once I had forgotten it, but once I kind of started doing it again, it just came back like this, and I was already up and running within the first 2 to 3 weeks, and it just was so much better. Went a lot smoother. I wasn't, and I already knew so I kind of learned from what I had done wrong the last term, like the first time I was there, and I
Mm-hmm.
just made sure that I did something else differently or did it differently, so I know I don't make those mistakes again. And that really came through second guessing myself. It's finding things out for sure before making any decision, and that's kind of what I changed.
Right. Right. So, after your experience at Crystal Fountains, you kind of focused on university before going into an actual co-op.
Mhm.
So, how did you build your resume in university?
Mhm.
How did you keep landing yourself in leadership roles? And how did you take charge as
Mhm.
not such a confident guy when you started to the person you are today?
I think it comes with putting yourself in very uncomfortable positions,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it really helps you out. It's doing things even though you're scared. And if you do them scared, it's better than not
Mm-hmm.
doing them at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing them when you're uncertain better than not doing it at all. And I don't mean that in every aspect. I just mean that in like an academic sense. I may mean it in a professional sense,
Mm-hmm.
by professional sense, I mean like applying to those jobs or joining a club. Uh, so I guess after those two co-ops, I joined the LES, so the Lassonde Engineering Society, as the electrical rep. Now, don't get me wrong. If you asked me a year before that if I was going to join any clubs, I probably would have told you no. Um, but that also came after I did Frosh for the first time in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of so summer 2022 was the year
Mm-hmm.
that I did Frosh, and I kind of, met a lot of people, kind of got to know a lot of people, and they kind of
Mm-hmm.
encouraged me to join the LES. So I joined. And don't get me wrong, I was very nervous. I was kind of scared. I didn't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what helped me out is because I did it scared, it helped me overcome that anxiousness and that fear of, oh, what could happen now. But I also thought about what the benefits of joining are, because the benefits of joining, well, hey, the LES is a bit more of a professional environment, similar to what I've been in and similar to
Mm-hmm.
what I want to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was already somewhat accustomed to that, and so it really helped me out. And I'm just kind of glad I joined it, and really it made me feel more confident about myself, that I started getting into myself into these more uncomfortable positions, getting myself into more roles, trying things, um, and that I would have never thought that I really would, or that I never would have thought I would just, help me come a long way. So I'm grateful. Can't really complain.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So going into Hydro One, right? What was the interview process like, and what did you expect versus what did you actually get there?
Mhm. And this is for Hydro One specifically, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I honestly, because this was my first professional interview, I didn't really know what to expect. I knew it was going to be difficult. I just didn't know what exactly was going to be asked, or how the or what the format of the interview was going to be like. But I knew that I really need to make an impression. So it was just a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of interview prep for like at least a month, at least. Just searching up questions, getting people to help me ask, like getting people to, help ask me some questions and me answering them, and then asking them, hey, was that a good answer? What do I need to change about the answer? What are the key points that I need to hit,
Mm-hmm.
especially in like the professional standpoint. Um, and it really helped me understand that a lot of the times, like they'll ask you two types of questions. They'll ask you technical
Mm-hmm.
questions. They'll ask you behavioral questions. And going into the interview, I knew they were going to be asking me those two. I didn't know what the ratio of the two were, but it was honestly an even 50-50. They asked me half technical, half behavioral, and it were similar to the questions that I had tried practicing answering. So I just gave very similar answers. They had the option of asking, or they had the gave me the option of doing the interview in person or online, and I said, you know what, I gotta show them I mean business here.
Oh.
I chose in person, so I had to
Mm-hmm.
go downtown. I went downtown,
Mm-hmm.
got dropped off, did my interview.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, tried to be as confident as I could. Of course, I was shaking in my boots a little bit. It was nerve wracking, and I really wanted the position because
Mm-hmm.
they only hired two
Oh.
co-ops, and there was a decent number of people that applied because like Hydro One is a very big, very prestigious company. When a lot of people think of Hydro One, they're like, "Wow, like
Mm-hmm.
that's very impressive." And so I really had to show up and show out. So I did what I could. I dressed up in like a suit,
Oh.
suit, dress, shirt, tie, everything. I meant business. I
Mm-hmm.
brought a notepad, a pencil. I went, um, and I think I did what I could, and I did my best, and this is where
Mm-hmm.
being confident in myself kind of came in, because I left it out on the table in the interview, and I
Mm-hmm.
left happy if I got the job. If I didn't, at least I know I
Mm-hmm.
gave it my best,
Mm-hmm.
and that was that.
Mm. So from this specific role, did you get
Mm.
the call instantly? Did they tell you instantly, or did you get a call? And did you interview for any other positions which you got as well?
So so I'm a bit of an outlier when it comes to this. I had
Mm-hmm.
only applied for five co-ops.
Wow.
I had only
Okay.
applied for five co-ops. I got one interview, and that interview was Hydro One,
Mm.
and that was the one job that I got. So
Wow.
I don't want to use myself as an example because that's really
Mm-hmm.
not the normality when it comes to applying for co-ops. People will apply to 20, 30, 40, 50 jobs and not get a single interview. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's tough. Even
Mm-hmm.
hundreds. I could tell you, I know people that have applied to at least 100 and only got like two
Mm-hmm.
interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
so that previous experience kind of helped me out, but I didn't get the call right away. I
Mm-hmm.
did get a call, and it actually came late.
Mm-hmm.
Reason being is I wasn't one of the original two chosen.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Oh.
I wasn't one of the original two chosen.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was the one of the people or one of the applicants that were chosen actually could not make it or could not
Mm-hmm.
either could not accept the job, did not accept the job. I don't know. I'm not gonna kind of go into
Mm-hmm.
details because I really don't know the details.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess I just so happened to be next in line, and I got the call early May.
Mm-hmm.
So the co-ops were originally supposed to start like mid-May, and I got the call
Mm-hmm.
early May, and
Mm.
so I started late. I started end of June,
Oh.
and so I had to go through the whole process that any normal applicant would go through, like a month before I did.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I kind of started late, and it was just trying to catch up to the other co-op that was hired, and it was a bit of a tough start,
Mm-hmm.
but once I got access to everything and settled in, like it was pretty good from then on.
I see. So, what did it l look like for you as an electric engineer? What was the te technical aspect of it, and how different was it from crystal fountains? Yeah.
Okay. It was very different actually. I did a lot more technical work at Hydro One. When I started, I was just doing a lot of like admin work because they're just trying to
Mm-hmm.
get me used to the processes, the softwares that they use.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I got and I think about I'm not gonna lie, about like a 2 weeks in, I got my first project. So it was
Oh.
very early. Um, and they basically get someone to mentor you, an engineer there. So one thing I'll tell you is almost everybody that's been working there for at least 5 years has their PEng
Oh,
already.
wow.
Everybody.
Oh.
It's
Oh.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody. But they get an engineer to mentor you. You kind of meet them. They'll take you through the process of like your first project. So
Mm-hmm.
normally with the projects, how it works is you kind of get the project, you see what the scope is, what the issue is, what needs to be fixed, if there's something new that needs to be added, if there's something that needs to be replaced. Uh, then you'll go and you'll actually do a site visit.
Oh.
And it's anywhere in Ontario. It's anywhere in Ontario. If I had a project up in Sudbury, well, guess what? I'm going to Sudbury. If I had a project in God knows where, no man's land, up in like down in St. Catharines, up in Timmins, Ontario, like you'd
Yeah.
find me there. Um, but it also depend on like where it was. So normally, luckily, I had my site visits not always too far away. But we go do a site visit, and you would actually see what the problem is, and you talk to all the on-site personnel, and they
Mm-hmm.
tell you, hey, this is the issue. This is what do you think would be the solution here? And normally in the first project, what you do is basically what you do is just kind of follow their lead and let them take the lead and just kind of take notes on what they're doing, what they're saying, questions that they ask. Um, they kind of get you to look at a lot of the drawings
Mm-hmm.
as well. So just so you can get accustomed to it. And then they'll delegate tasks to you, be like, hey, this is what you got to do. Once you do it, show me, and then we'll go over it. Once we go over it, we can move forward to the next step of the project. Um, and it took a couple projects before being able to, or being given my own project that I actually led, with of course my mentor being like behind me just to kind of catch me if I ever fell in a metaphorical sense.
Right.
Um, just to kind of be there. So like I'd take the lead, I'd ask the questions, they'd come on site with me, but I'd kind of like take the lead here, and then if there were any questions that maybe I might have missed, they'd ask, or when I'm working on the drawings, kind of marking
Mm-hmm.
them up, changing them, I'd show them and be like, okay, this is what you need to consider, this is what you need to do. Just make sure you keep those things in mind, for whenever you do a project. And it really helped me out, and that really 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 helped me gain a lot more confidence in what I did, because after that first project of me being able to do it on
Mm-hmm.
my own, it just everything just fell into place, and it couldn't have been better than it went for me. So I'm very thankful.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. So I believe you work with power systems a lot.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, so I kind of watched a lot of videos on Hydro One, and that
Hmm.
was that was my entire night. Um, so I just have like the idea of Hydro One of like flying people out in choppers with like snow all around. And but I believe
Yeah.
like there's like power station aspect to it, and there's like
Yes.
people who are at the offices kind of helping these people out in real time through like troubleshooting and stuff. What did you do more of?
So I was in a department called transmission stations.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I worked with power transmission,
Mm-hmm.
and more specifically, power stations. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
transmission stations. There's transmission stations. There's transmission lines. So there's the actual
Mm-hmm.
power lines going across. There's a department for that. Then there's distribution stations, which are smaller power stations that distribute to local companies, LDCs, as they say, local distributor companies,
Mm-hmm.
or residential areas, commercial areas,
Mm-hmm.
industrial areas, um, and then distribution lines, which are basically the lines for those voltage levels.
Right.
I worked with the transmission stations, which were higher voltage
Mm-hmm.
levels. I
Mm-hmm.
worked from anywhere between, again, me personally, just because I was a co-op, I worked from
Mm-hmm.
anywhere, like the voltage levels were in between, I think, 4.8 kV, like, and some of the low voltage stuff inside the station, all the way to
Mm-hmm.
230 kilovolts.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So so you talked about distribution lines being different for private companies and like sizable regions.
Mhm.
So how how different does the power system aspect of it look from like private companies to, sizable regions?
Well, so basically it's kind of like a chain. Um, there's the generation aspect. Now
Mm-hmm.
there are companies like OPG that generate, like Ontario Power Generation.
Mm-hmm.
There's companies even Hydro One further up north,
Mm-hmm.
where there's really no power generation. Hydro One
Mm-hmm.
also generates power themselves, but basically it's a bit of a chain. So it goes from generation through a line of transmission. So transmits from
Mm-hmm.
one station across lines to other stations, across lines to other stations, till it
Mm-hmm.
reaches the end of the line, which is the distribution. Now,
Mm-hmm.
basically, there's the last station in the line. We can call it like a Hydro One station.
Mm-hmm.
The last distribution station is normally a lower voltage station.
I see. Okay.
So it'll be like 13.8 kV, 40, 27.6 kV, 44 kV, maybe even less for like 4.16, 8.3, 8.2 kV, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And then they distribute to companies, and that's where basically the chain ends. And from that point onwards, we Hydro One doesn't really deal with that. Uh, so it really depends on where these areas are, because normally the further out you go and uh, the closer you get to the distribution areas, but the closer in you are, it's just mainly power transmission, uh, power stations where you're having like 500 kV, 230 kV, maybe 115. And then the further out you go, normally you'd have a little less because that's when it starts distributing into or getting to that distribution area.
I understand.
Yeah.
So I believe Hydro One just deals with like the transmission and distribution aspect of power systems and not really the generation. And I know there are a few exceptions, but
Yeah.
did you deal with any like power generation aspect of the power systems?
No.
No.
My role and my department was specifically just stations and the transmission within the stations, into the station, within the station, and out of the station. And any components that either needed to be added or replaced. Um, that was my role. I worked more on the smaller scale items or the smaller scale pieces of equipment within the stations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of the other engineers were hell. They were creating new stations. They had projects where they had to create a new station from scratch.
Right.
They had to change a whole section of a station.
Mm.
It was insane. You kind of see what they do, and it's really fascinating. But we
Wow.
focused mainly on the power transmission within the stations.
Do you have any interest in working in the generation aspect of power systems, or that's something that doesn't intrigue you that much?
Well, I haven't done much research into it, so I don't really know if it would interest me or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm open to it, but I'd have to kind of do some research as to what that role would look like. But I'd have to, if I would want to do that, I would probably need a more prominent role elsewhere, kind of like OPG maybe,
Mm-hmm.
where they mainly focus on generation. So I could kind of get a better understanding of that. But I think as of now, I'm content with power transmission. So I think that's where I'll stick for now.
Right. So I know there's a difference between learning things from a course and actually applying them to jobs.
Mhm.
So what is your thought process in that? How did you develop those problem-solving skills?
These problem-solving skills I learned on the job.
Oh.
I'll tell you right now, the carryover from what you learn in class to the workplace is very minimal.
Mm.
The whole point of a degree is just to make you work for it, basically. Well, I mean, but what I'll say is it depends on what you want to get into. Um, there's Here at York, there's few power courses. There's not too many.
Mm-hmm.
And there's parts of the courses that you can take with you into the workplace. A lot of it is like maybe voltage calculations, um,
Mm-hmm.
like line to neutral voltage, line to line voltage. Like those actually carry on over to the workforce and the real world, but it's only just the basics. You don't really take any of the complex things that you really learn. But if it's kind of different, where you're learning more about like hardware or like you're doing like a microcontroller, again, I don't know because I don't go in. I'm not in it, or I don't want to go into it. So it may be a
Mm-hmm.
little different there. But with power specifically, it's a bit of a minimal carryover. And a lot of the things that I know now, I actually had to learn on the job. And there were standards that kind of helped me kind of figure out what those were, what I would do in certain situations, what calculations to make. So it really helped, just to kind of take that first couple of weeks and really just kind of read like standards and understand the processes. So it kind of helped me out that.
Right. Absolutely. And how important do you think, like, as a person who has worked with energy and who knows how important it is to sustain energy,
Hmm.
how important do you think we should, how important is it for us to sustain energy for a better future?
It's I think like I've taken like a course or two on like I've taken a course called renewable energy,
Mm-hmm.
and it really kind of opened my eyes to so I kind of learned about like how expensive or how cheap it is maybe compared to like other sources of energy that aren't as renewable, um, and 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 kind of the direction and the trajectory that kind of society is going and using this like using renewable energy. I'll be honest, this is
Mm-hmm.
very important. Um, we're transitioning over from non-renewable energy to renewable energy, be it through electricity, as like solar, um, wind, whatever it may be. And of course, we kind of mainly focused on solar and wind, as well as EV, electric
Right.
vehicles and their
Absolutely.
kinds of things. Yeah, it really helps with our emission downside, like downsizing the amount, like the emissions that we output into the atmosphere, into the air. And it's very important because what they say, like with climate change and global warming, is with the continuation of these emissions, like will we be able to salvage and save what we've lost? And we're kind of getting up to the point where if we continue the way we're going, we won't even be able to salvage the little bit that we have left. So it's kind of understanding what these sources of energy are doing and how they're affecting the world, and the people in it, and how that affects you as a person 20, 30 years down the road, and what kind of world you want to be living in. So it's something it's very important to consider. At least for me, it is. Some people may not, consider it as much, but yeah, I just say it's something that's very important that people should think about and kind of do some research on, just to
Ab-
kind of gain some more knowledge on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There was one project I had. I basically had to change. I had to replace. Can't remember what I had to play. I think it was a capacitor,
I see. Okay.
or like a set of them, but
Mm-hmm.
they were in the main area of the station, and that part of the station kind of had to be shut down because they weren't working. So
Right.
it's like it's very important that things are done on, like, especially with the projects that I'm working on, things are done on time. um, Things are done right the first time. Very, very important, because the electricity, the power that's being transmitted, um, you know people lose power, actually. Like if it's out long enough, there are outages in a large area, maybe even a small area, maybe even a larger area. So it's just very important you know, to make sure you know what you're working with,
Mm-hmm.
and doing it right the first time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my understanding of microgrids is it's basically those big grids
Mhm.
that you worked with on a smaller aspect, in a smaller
Mhm.
aspect.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's basically so that they can be implemented in households.
Okay.
What do you think that entails? Like, what you would say the benefits of that and kind of some challenges that we'll have to just inevitably face?
Yeah. I think when I'm taking a look at the components I find in a power station, I
Mm-hmm.
don't really see much that can actually be converted into like a household product, if you get what I mean.
I
if that
understand.
makes any sense. Um, and that's the thing. It's I'll be honest, I think one of the biggest things you'd have to take into factor is cost. It's expensive. And for if it's per house, every house, it's it's going to be very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the way it is now, where it's just, you know, the big power companies distributing it to the local distributor companies that then distribute it to, the little green transformers that you have on your street, where you have multiple houses, connected to that power grid, and connected there. Just kind of, it's again, I'd have to do some more thinking as to how what we can do or what could be done to kind of make it a little more effective, or maybe even effective cost wise, effective, efficiency wise. Um, but I think the way it is now, it just seems to be working. And
Mm-hmm.
that, if there was a better way of doing it, there's no rush in kind of figuring out a solution. And I think that's one of the good things, one of the benefits that we have with the way things are now. We're not in a dire situation where we need to figure out a solution quickly. We're in a good place with, how electricity and how power is transmitted and distributed all throughout, let's say, the city and the country, and and if we were to come up with a new solution that, would be more cost effective, or more, maybe more reliable, there would be no rush in doing so.
Absolutely. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that was a very well thought of answer, especially when
thank
you
you.
took everything into consideration, even your experience. Yeah, yeah,
Thank you, thank you.
that was very valuable insight. So I know you touched on this in your
Mhm.
answer for energy sustainability,
Mhm.
but how is the electrification of like transportation, like EVs,
Mhm.
impacting energy sustainability? Like, where do you think that is going with like companies like Tesla and like almost every company has a EV car now? So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Um, I think, if you see the trend of like all these EV companies, just kind of coming out of the blue or coming out of
Mm-hmm.
nowhere, in the like early mid late 2010s, and just creating this electric car, and now all these other companies that, make cars that use diesel, that use gas,
Mm-hmm.
making
Mm-hmm.
electric cars.
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it's headed towards a good place in terms of sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, I'd say it's a little more cost effective. Now, the one issue that we may face in terms of EVs is, although charging cars is cheaper, very cheap
Mm-hmm.
actually. You go to a supercharger, you have one in your house. It barely makes any dent at all in your electricity bill.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have to have a battery replacement, they are
Mm-hmm.
very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question is it, so I don't know the exact price. I've tried searching it up, but it doesn't show the exact price, give or take.
Right.
Um, but now the question is, does the battery replacement after the 6 to 8 year mark, depending on how reliable it is and how
Mm-hmm.
expensive it may be, does it negate all the gas that maybe someone with a car, that runs on gas would have spent? Does it negate that cost? Does it equal that cost? Like, I'd say no. I'd say it's still more cost effective, because, I have the cars that I drive. Again, I don't own any cars. It's my parents and my sister, but the cars that I drive, when they fill a full tank, it's almost $100.
Right.
And you fill a tank, give or take, every 2 to 3 weeks on average,
Right.
depending on how much you use the car. I'd say I'd give 2 weeks, maybe. I'd say every 2 weeks you fill $100. That's $200 a month of gas. Multiply
Absolutely.
that by 12. That's $2,400 worth of gas every year.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's like obviously like owning a EV car is cheaper,
Mhm.
but it's also valuable if you drive all the time,
It is. It is. It's
right?
it's you have to, you kind of have to take a look at your situation on
Mm-hmm.
whether to get one or not. If you're driving all the time, it's so much better. You're in the long run, although EV cars may be more expensive now,
Mm-hmm.
they're a good investment for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at yourself with that car 5, 10 years, you're actually going to be spending less than you would with a regular car. Um, and if you're not driving all the time, well, you don't really need an EV car. You just get one if you want one, and if you have the
Mm-hmm.
money to get one. Um, oh, as much as I may, who knows, maybe like a couple years down the line,
Mm-hmm.
I may need to drive a lot. Would I get
Mm-hmm.
an EV? Absolutely. But I'd also love a car, that I can rev the engine a little bit and kind of hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, again, like you decide on how you want, if you have one of each, like one
Mm-hmm.
EV, one regular car, you can decide like, hey, this is my daily driver. This is like for special events, and you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of mix and match. But I think in the long term, in the long run, it's EV is the way to go.
Absolutely. And especially with like the politics right now, I know there's a stigma around Teslas.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, but no, you're right. Like if it works for you, it works for you, right?
yeah,
Even on
yeah.
social media, like when you hear someone who has a EV car, you form certain assumptions about that person.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely. I don't think you know how many times I've seen the Cybertruck, and I'm like, damn, that's an ugly car. But you know what? And as expensive as it is now, with the car that I drive, with the car that my parents drive, you look 10 years
mhm,
down the road, they're that accumulation of cost is less than we would have paid and spent. You know, again, it depends on how long you're keeping the car for.
absolutely.
Um, if you're keeping it for like 5, 10 years, then it's not worth it. But you want to keep it for longer, then I'd say absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think we'll be able to switch to just renewable energy and non-renewable energy becomes something of the past?
No. I think there are just some sources of energy that are so relied on
Mm-hmm.
that if we were to switch to renewable energy, wouldn't be as efficient. Um, like nuclear, one of those. It's just you can't. It's just something you can't fully make obsolete. Like it's gonna be there and it'll always be there.
Mm-hmm.
We can try to minimize the amount of nuclear energy that we use, but it'll just never fully, disappear.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, let's just wrap up today by
Okay,
this one last question.
sure.
Uh, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received or heard?
It's it's what I mentioned earlier. I think one of the first things I mentioned kind of at the beginning of the, like when after the introductions, which was you know, suffer now and enjoy later, or enjoy now and suffer later. And it's very evident. If you take a look at a lot of cases around you, people that wanna party, wanna enjoy, yes, do party and enjoy all you want in your younger years, but as long as you make sure that you're working hard at the same time, and passing your courses, and knowing that your future depends on it most of the time, not all the time. There are people that drop out and still become millionaires, but for those that do pursue a post-secondary education, or that are still in high school, work hard and have that degree, and then once you graduate, do whatever you want. You don't have to use the degree, or you could, as long as you get that degree so you can fall back on it if things don't work out, is honestly the best thing you can do for yourself. And that's another piece of advice that I was also given. Just work hard, get your degree, and after that, you live your life how you want to. But just know that if things don't work out without the degree, you have it there, and that can be your backup. So I'd say just, you know, work hard, but also work smart. Don't tire yourself. I'm going into my fifth academic year, and my sixth overall year at like in engineering, and not once
Wow.
have I pulled an all-nighter. Uh, I
Oh,
I haven't
really?
stayed. I probably haven't stayed up past like two a.m. at the latest studying. I have a schedule, man. I have a sleep schedule. I try,
No,
but
absolutely.
it's
And
also yeah, just working hard, working smart,
mhm.
knowing your goals and where you want to be, and just working towards them, and knowing that you have help around you, be it through could be family, friends, school in general. Um, Rely on those, on that support from other people. Could be from resources around you. Just to be mindful of those things, because those things really help you out. And one, I guess, another piece of advice that not necessarily that I've been given, but that I would give is to don't be afraid to put yourself out in uncomfortable situations. Um, Put yourself out there. It could be professionally, it could be joining clubs, um, in any way, shape, or form, just to build your resume so that you stand out more to the employers. That's what I would say. And those are the pieces of advice that I've been given. But yeah, that would be it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know how harmful it is to even lose that 1 hour of sleep.
Mm,
And there are countless studies done on it. And I'm so glad that bright engineers like you are taking that seriously.
thank you.
And yeah, it was absolutely an honor to have you on this episode. And I
Thank
cannot
you.
wait to see the amazing things you'll accomplish.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate it, man. Pleasure's all mine. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you for inviting me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
all right.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.